So the question is, are your guitar tracks too quiet on the way in to your interface? And also, how powerful of a computer do you really need when looking to produce professional sounding productions? Welcome to Viewer Questions Answered, episode 21. Okay, so before we dive into this excellent group of questions submitted by subscribers, I want to let you know that you could download my free guitar impulse response Octapack. Within the Octapack, you get 8 impulse responses, 4 different microphones, 2 mic placements each. And the great thing about this pack is that it's all killer and no filler. No more sifting through a million impulse responses that sound like crap. Simply load one of these 8 IRs into your favorite Amazon plugin and get right to dialing in killer metal guitar tones with ease. You can download the Octapack for absolutely free. There's a link below in this video's description. So our first question here comes from Matt. I'd like to see a video on what you personally find to be sufficient for a music production PC for tracking metal and rock bands. You've touched a lot on interfaces, mics, and plugins. Perhaps some recommendations for CPUs and so on if someone is wanting to build a budget PC that will be able to perform well enough to track bands. I know there's plenty of other videos out there that touch on this, but just curious to get your opinion on what works from a minimal budget standpoint for being able to record multiple simultaneous inputs with the least amount of latency and other possible issues. Obviously, there are lots of factors to consider, like how you're connecting your interface, etc. I feel like it would be a very useful video and don't really see many others touching on this specifically. Thanks. Okay, well, Matt, this is an excellent question, and I'll definitely be covering this more in future videos now that I'm hearing that there's interest in this topic. Let me just tell you this, that I was recording full albums, full bands, 16 inputs into my DAW on an old 2006, that's right, 2006 MacBook Pro with only 2 gigs of RAM. And I not only recorded on that computer, I used to mix and master on that computer from the years 2006 up until 2012. And then from the years 2012 till just this year, actually, I was using an old 2012 MacBook Pro. If you're just recording live instruments and you're not running a ton of software synths and things like that, you really don't need that powerful of a computer. Now, I use Pro Tools, and Pro Tools is a resource hog. But with that being said, I was using Pro Tools back in 2006, and I never had any issues. Now, if you're a Reaper user, I just want to let you know that you are in luck. I've done a ton of live recordings, 16 tracks simultaneously to the DAW at actual events and live shows and venues, all being recorded into Reaper on a $300 PC that only had, I think, 4 gigs of RAM, and I've never had an issue. Now, I'm not a computer guy, but I just want to let you know this, that if you're going to buy a PC, it's definitely worth having at least 8 gigs of RAM, just because a lot of the newer plugins and software synths and virtual instruments are a little more intense as far as RAM usage. So I wouldn't go below 8 gigs. But dude, you really don't need an insanely powerful PC to do basic audio production. Like I said, that first rig I mentioned is laughable, and I was recording full albums back 15 years ago without an issue, with only 2 gigs of RAM. And again, just to be ultra clear, that wasn't just recording, that was also mixing and mastering. So Matt, hopefully that answers your question and kind of points you in the right direction. Unfortunately, there is no one right answer, but I'll definitely be covering this and talking more about the technology end of things in future videos. Thank you for your submission. Okay, our next question here comes from We Collect Skis. This channel is a godsend. Bit of a weird request or question. Have you thought about doing a video on how do I know my mix is bad, yet it sounds okay on what I'm listening to it back on, and then send it off to the engineer to master to have it coming back sounding like it was recorded on a potato? I know a master is all about the mix, but it's just scary with all of these online mastering experts, or let's make an AI do your EQ and compression for you, etc. Okay, well dude, this is an excellent question, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't trust these sites that supposedly automatically master your music. There's a reason why there are world-renowned mastering engineers out in the world mastering some of your favorite records. And I'm also not a purist either. There are great producers, like Andy Sneap, for example, that master their own work as well. But here's the key thing. They are human beings listening with a musical ear mastering the work, not a computer. The thing about mixing, production, and all of this is that it is an art form just as much as it is a science. So at least up until this point in 2021, I don't know of any algorithm that can magically master your track, making it sound better. And I've heard some pretty horrific results where people have sent their mixes out to some of these, mastering sites. So that's my take on it. I wouldn't trust any of these automatic mastering sites. I'd much rather have a human being with experience and a great ear master my music, or I would just rather master it myself. So dude, thanks for your submission and excellent question. Okay, our next question here comes from Lord Silky. One thing I did notice was how low the guitar and drum input levels were and how defined/distinguishable the waveform looks compared to my recordings. Am I pushing things too hot right out of the gate? I've heard about saving headroom for plugins and post, etc. Would love to see this topic covered. Thanks, Bobby. Okay, well, Lord Silky, this is a great question, and I'm definitely gonna be covering it more in future tutorials. And when it comes to gain staging, I have a very, very simple approach. I just don't clip. And as a matter of fact, I did an interview with Jordan Valeriot about a year ago, and we've both come to the conclusion and had the same exact opinion on this. Just don't clip. Now, you don't want to be tracking your guitars too low and have them sitting in the noise floor, but that's pretty hard to do when you're recording at 24-bit. Now, I know what you're talking about. When you look in my DAW, you see a lot of the waveforms might look smaller to you. You have to keep in mind that this could just be my waveform view. Within most DAWs, you can actually adjust the waveform view and make it bigger or smaller without actually messing with the source waveform. It's just a visual thing. Now, most of my guitar recordings, if I were to guess, again, I don't pay attention to numbers while I'm tracking, would be sitting peaking at around maybe -8 to -10. I leave a little bit of headroom so I make sure that I don't clip on the way into my DAW. And again, I just make sure that I'm not recording in such a soft manner that my signal is sitting below in the noise floor. To be honest, what you're worried about is a non-issue. All of this stuff about leaving a specific amount of headroom for better sound, as long as you're not clipping digitally, you're good to go. People just like turning this into rocket science when it doesn't have to be. So Lord Silky, hopefully that answers your question. Just remember, don't clip on the way in and don't record so quietly that your signal is sitting down in a noise floor. If you follow that simple rule of thumb, you'll be good to go whether you're recording guitars, vocals, drums, or any other instrument for that matter. Excellent question. Okay, our final question here comes from Eric. Hey Bobby, thanks for making these videos, man. When you're doing an album for a band, how do you like to mix master every song that they all sound the same off the same album? Example, same volume on all the songs, same guitar, drum, and bass sounds. Thank you for your insight on this process, Eric. Eric, this is an excellent question, and I'll explain the way that I do it in a nutshell. When I'm working on an EP or an album with a band, I will mix one song and I'll make sure that the band is 100% happy with the song. And generally, I'll choose a song that best represents the rest of the project. Again, whether it's an EP or an album or any other collection of songs. Once that song is 100% approved by the band and the mix is 1000% done and there are no other revisions that need to take place, I will use that song as my template for the rest of the album. So I'll take the DAW session, wipe it clean of all the audio files, and when I mix the other songs, I will drop the audio files for the other songs into that template. Now, it's not necessarily a plug and play operation. You still have to write in all of your automation. Different songs are gonna have different overdubs, maybe different lead guitar sounds, different vocal sounds, different synths, but the meat and potatoes will be the same. The drums, bass guitar, and definitely the rhythm guitars, which are your three main instrument groups that make up the bulk of the sound of your mix. And that's really my approach. Again, the key here is to make sure the band really approves the first mix. The worst thing in the world is when the band approves the first mix, and then you mix, let's say, the rest of the album, and they're like, oh, we want a different drum sound, and you have to change the entire album. Luckily, at this point, I make sure with 100% certainty that the bands are 1000% happy. But in the past, I have dealt with that where the band will randomly change up what kind of drum sound or rhythm guitar sound they want, or reamp the guitars after the album is mixed, and that's a major pain in the neck. Eric, excellent question. Hopefully that points you in the right direction, and maybe it's something that you could utilize within your own projects. So I would just like to shout out and thank all of my subscribers for submitting this excellent group of questions. Now, if you've emailed me a question and I haven't gotten to it yet, just be patient. I'll definitely get to it within one of these videos in this series. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things Metal Rock production. If you're interested in some Frightbox swag, got t-shirts, mugs, and other cool stuff on the way. There's a link below in this video's description to the Frightbox merch store. And again, if you're into guitar tone, guitar plugins, amp sims, and you're looking for impulse responses that sound good at the source, you could download my IR Octapack. 8 different impulse responses, 4 different mics, 2 placements per mic. There's a link below to the free Octapack in this video's description. And until next time, happy mixing.